The worst day of my life began with a joke. At least, that was what my friends called it when they pushed me into a small café at 11 in the morning, laughing as they told me I had been set up on a date with a woman I had never met. They expected me to be embarrassed, maybe angry, and then come back to our table so they could laugh at me. They never expected me to meet the woman who would completely change my life. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness can give someone a second chance and that one unexpected moment can change everything, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to Midnight Tales. Your support means more than you know. My name is Rowan Mercer, and at 32, I had become very good at pretending I was fine. From the outside, my life looked ordinary. I had a steady job repairing and restoring old furniture, a small apartment, a reliable car, and a group of friends who had known me since college. But underneath all of that was a loneliness I rarely admitted. 3 years earlier, the woman I thought I would marry had left after months of slowly pulling away from me. She told me I had become too focused on work and too afraid to take chances. I couldn't even argue with her. After she left, I stopped trying. I stopped dating. I stopped making plans. I simply went to work, came home, ate dinner alone, and repeated the same routine the next day. My friends thought this was hilarious. They constantly tried to get me back into the dating world, but I always refused. So one sunny Tuesday morning, they decided to take matters into their own hands. They told me there was an urgent furniture consultation at a cafe across town. When I arrived, I realized immediately that I had been tricked. They had reserved a table near the window and left a note telling me that my mystery date would arrive soon. I could hear their laughter from somewhere outside. I was furious. I was already preparing to leave when I noticed the woman sitting alone near the window. She looked nothing like the person I had imagined. Her name, I would later learn, was Sienna. She wore a simple navy sweater and a long beige skirt, and her hair was tied neatly behind her head. She wasn't staring at her phone or nervously checking the door. Instead, she was looking through an old photograph she held carefully between her fingers. There was something about the sadness in her expression that made me stop. I sat across from her, mostly because leaving suddenly felt cruel. She looked up and smiled politely, as though she already understood the ridiculous situation. I discovered that she had also been tricked by friends. Hers had told her she was meeting someone who needed help choosing a gift for his mother. Neither of us had been told the truth. At first, the entire situation felt awkward. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of laughing about the prank, Sienna asked me why I looked like I wanted to disappear. I told her I wasn't good at dates anymore. She smiled and admitted that she wasn't good at them either. Somehow, that honesty broke the tension. We spent the next hour talking. Not flirting. Not pretending. Just talking. She told me she worked as an interior designer and had recently returned to the city after taking care of her father during a long illness. She spoke about him with a softness that made it clear how much she loved him. I told her about my furniture restoration business and how I had learned the trade from my grandfather. We discovered that both of us had spent years taking care of other people while quietly forgetting how to take care of ourselves. When we finally walked outside, sunlight covered the sidewalk, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like rushing home. We met again the following Saturday, this time because we both wanted to. There was no joke, no secret arrangement, and no friends hiding around a corner. We walked through a weekend market, shared coffee, and laughed about how badly our friends had planned the whole thing. But beneath the laughter, something deeper was happening. Sienna was slowly pulling me out of a life I had built around fear. Then, just as I began allowing myself to hope again, her father passed away. Sienna disappeared from my life for several weeks. I didn't know whether I should contact her or give her space. Eventually, I went to her house and left a small wooden box outside her door. I had made it myself from walnut, carefully polishing every edge. Inside was a photograph of her father that she had once shown me at the cafe. I had noticed that the corners were torn, so I had repaired the frame and protected the picture. I didn't ask her to come outside. I didn't ask for anything in return. I simply left it there. The next morning, she called me. Her voice was quiet, but there was something different in it. She told me that the little box was the first kind thing anyone had done for her since the funeral without expecting her to be strong in return. I told her she didn't have to be strong around me. That sentence changed us. Months passed. We began building a life together in the simplest ways. Sunday breakfasts became our tradition. We painted the walls of her father's old workshop and turned it into a small creative studio. I restored the furniture while she redesigned the space. Some days were difficult. We argued. We misunderstood each other. We both carried old wounds that didn't disappear simply because we had fallen in love. But we learned something important. Love wasn't about finding someone who had no scars. It was about finding someone who didn't make you ashamed of yours. One afternoon, nearly a year after that ridiculous joke date, my friends showed up at the studio expecting to tease me again. Instead, they found Sienna standing beside me while we prepared the final piece of furniture for a charity auction. It was an old wooden dining table donated by a family who could no longer afford their home. We had restored it together so another family could have a beautiful place to gather. One of my friends looked at me and jokingly apologized for setting me up that day. I smiled because I finally understood something. The joke hadn't been the worst day of my life. It had been the beginning of the best chapter. Sienna had not rescued me from loneliness. She had simply reminded me that I was still capable of opening my heart. And I had learned that sometimes life doesn't change with a grand miracle. Sometimes it changes with a badly planned prank, a stranger sitting beside a sunny window, a small act of kindness, and one person brave enough to stay. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who may need a little hope, and subscribe to Midnight Tales. Sometimes the smallest stories carry the biggest reminders. And before you leave, special request, please comment, second chances, if you believe one unexpected moment can change an entire life. Because sometimes the person you never expected to meet becomes the reason you finally start living again. And sometimes, what begins as someone else's joke becomes the most beautiful truth you have ever known.